welcome back to Bordertown. Today's episode I'm going to be working on a rail yard that's going to be wedged in between Las Palmas and Juarez. This is a train yard that I think is going to be serving pretty much the transit between the two countries and is going to be a bit of a hub for where pretty much storage and freight is going to be situated for just a short period of time. This is an area that I'm sort of taking inspiration from the one that actually sits in Las Palmas, in El Paso, I should be saying. I'm trying to pull as much from this area as possible because I'm really not a train guy. I don't really know how freight works while trains operate. So pretty much just going from a design perspective. So keep that in mind when you see me start plopping down some things. There's going to be a whole bunch of inaccuracies that I'm sure you'll probably find. And, this is a bit of a call out that if you do see anything that you think I could probably fix kind of easily, then do let me know so then I can get in there and fix it up in the next episodes, I guess. But pretty much, I am happy with how this thing looks aesthetically. I think it does have a pretty cool look, and I think it works pretty nicely, and it definitely works quite nicely in terms of finishing off this area. Now, before I was actually going to be working on some suburbs around Las Palmas, but I sort of changed my mind and I thought I should probably just finish off this area first, and then I can move on to some slightly different projects that are going to be more focused around Las Palmas and building up a bit more of the population, and so we can sort of start getting into the downtown, because I feel like it's kind of got all the elements of a city, but it just doesn't have a downtown just yet. And I think that is probably something that definitely needs to be, done in the earlier episodes, I think. Now, just before I start talking about what I'm doing, I just want to apologize for any planes that are flying over my head right now. They're probably creeping into the microphone a little bit. I usually you can't hear them. I'll have about 2 weeks and not a single plane will fly over, and then one day we'll get one every 3 minutes, and that just happens to be one of those days, which is really annoying. So I'm sorry if you can hear some rumbling in the background. And before I am kicking off the work on the rail yards, I'm actually working on this road that's going to be sort of serving as a bit of a highway, but it's also still quite close to the city that it still has, it's not quite as fast as a highway might be, and it does bypass a couple of shops. Now, this highway is something that I've just been taking inspiration from the one that actually sits in El Paso, but I am modifying it just a little bit. So this particular highway is solely for just transit. There's not really any shops that sit on here or houses. However, I'm going to be changing it a little bit because I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more unique. And I think something that does really set this aside from the real one in El Paso is these really cool custom lights that used to be placed down that have the American flag on them, and I think they're a really nice touch. I do want to be placing down a bit more American-esque things, that is about as American as you can get of American flag, but I think it's a really nice touch, and I think it sort of suits this particular area really nicely. But I will be placing down some shops around here as well, and some houses that are going to be on here too. So it's not really solely for transit. There will be some shops and some houses that are going to also be placed around this area, and also access to the rail yard, which I'm going to start working on in just a sec. But that road in particular, it's going to go pretty much hug the entire river all along the Las Palmas side, and it'll allow access to a lot of different areas around Las Palmas, as well as some more gates into Juarez, and also some other suburbs and other places like that. So it'll be quite cool when this starts to get a bit more developed and we can start seeing some more cars driving around. But already it's quite a busy place, which is pretty cool. As you can see, we've only got 3,500 people in the city, which is kind of small and they're pretty much all over in Juarez. So Las Palmas definitely needs a little bit of suburbs to sort of start calling it a bit of a city. And what you've seen me work on at the moment is pretty much just figuring out where this train line's going to go. I do want to start seeing trains using this area. Don't want it just to be purely props and purely just a network of rail. I do actually want to see it functioning as well. So I will be putting in a cargo hub as well, so that trains will stop here as well on the way through. But pretty much a lot of these trains that are going to be sitting around here are going to be props, just for aesthetics, just to look at. They do create a really great atmosphere, I think, and they add a lot to this area. And you might actually notice there's two bridges that go over the river. Now, those two bridges go into Mexico. They're the two bridges that cross the border. They're both going in different directions. So you take one line to get into the US and then another line to get out of the US. And that is something that is pretty unique to this area. I thought that was a pretty cool little touch that I definitely wanted to achieve. And the really cool thing is you actually see trains using it in that sort of a fashion. So that's quite cool. And I'm going to be detailing that area in the next episodes. So there's I finished most of this work in this episode, but I do go through a couple of other areas in the next episode just to give it that final touch. But all up, I think everything turns out pretty nice. And like I said before, I'm not a train guy. I don't really know exactly how all these networks work. So I am pretty much just basing it purely off what I am seeing off Google Earth. And off Google Earth, I can see a lot of different areas where trains and freight are held and kept. And it doesn't really look like anything's taken off the trains in this particular area. So it's not exactly a cargo hub. It's purely just an area where trains are kept while they're in transit or waiting to cross the border or have just crossed the border and sort of waiting to go to a different area. And there's actually quite a lot of these places in El Paso, and I will be creating quite a lot of these areas in Las Palmas as well, because that is actually one of the elements that I really like about this particular area, is that there is a lot of transit. There's a lot of freight that's been transported to and from the border, which is kind of like a unique thing to this particular area. Not unique to borders in general, but in terms of creating something in City Skylines that is quite unique, I think that's a pretty good little touch. And now that I've finished all the rail networks, they're pretty much where I want them to be. I'm now going to go in and start decorating this area with some props. And to kick things off, I'm going to be placing down some factories so that I will be... So, this area is functional in terms of an industrial area. There are cargo and there is freight coming in and out of this place, so that it's not exactly... just purely props and just purely for looks. This is also something that is a functioning industrial area, and that is something that I really enjoy doing. As much as this game I now play is so not like a game, like a lot of people are saying, well, where's the fun in creating what you're creating, because it's like the game mechanics don't exactly work. And yeah, you're right. This game is so pushed to its limits in this city that doesn't really operate the way that the game was probably intended to operate. However, I do like to still create a moving city that is still operating in a way that the city would operate. So, regardless, I like the way that I'm placing down props and the way that I'm placing down industry and suburbs and commercial, they're still done in a way that a city would actually operate. And the way that the city still functions is still like a city, which is what I think is such an amazing thing from this game, that, this game can be pushed to so many limits like this. It still functions. Like, there's cars driving around, there's trucks going to factories, there's trucks going to commercial, people go from houses to the downtown to where they work. It all still works, which is really cool, and that's what I think is so great about this game, is that, it's so well optimized. I know that I'm getting such bad frame rate, but it's still so, it's still such a great game that, I think, a game to work like it does when I'm pushing it so much is pretty cool. The city is not making any money. Like we're pretty minus right now, as you can tell, and we are losing people in terms of our population. But it's still pretty cool. And I am looking forward to when the city starts really establishing and we start having suburbs and commercial and industry on both sides of the border, and then we're just purely expanding and making it bigger. And who knows, maybe we'll turn a profit, or maybe we'll see a rise in population. We'll have to see what happens when we kind of cross that line. But in terms of what I've been doing at the moment, and I've just been decorating this industrial area, and something I'm working on at the moment is just working on this factory on the on this side. Now this is part of a this building is part of a pack that is for a shoe factory, and it's something that I've always been wanting to use because I think it's a great pack. It's got a lot of great assets, and I'm just using one building from there and sort of turning it into a bit of a warehouse. And something that I'm working on right now is I'm using a bunch of assets to kind of create a little bit of a construction site. Now, in my mind, this construction site has ceased construction. It's not really operating anymore. You'll see I'll place down some shrubs very shortly surrounding this area to sort of show that it was once under construction, and now for some reason it is now stopped. Who knows why it's stopped, but I thought that this would be kind of a cool area for a bit of a construction to happen, and that's just a little bit more atmosphere to this area, because one thing that is sort of tricky about working in an area like this is there's a lot of bare space, like a lot of places without props, or a lot of places without detail, and you got to try and add in just elements of detail in places that definitely need it, and then also just leave some areas alone. And in the next episode you actually see me, I will sort of try to keep some areas quite sparse, rather than going into lots of detail all the time, which is, I can't help but go into lots of detail all the time, unfortunately. Who knows what my prop count is at the moment? Actually, I haven't even checked, and I'm not too worried about it. I've never really been too worried about prop limits. I've always been somewhat far away from them, regardless of how many props I place down anyway. And what I'm doing right now is probably going to... Now, this is where I think I'm going to start getting a lot of people telling me that this is very inaccurate, because I'm not basing these trains off any particular model or any particular freight style. I'm purely just stringing these together based off Google Earth and what I can tell from a street view when I'm looking at this area and seeing the way that the freight trains are strung together. So... I don't know how accurate this is. I don't think I'm going to change it unless, you give me a really good reason why I should change it. It kind of took a while to actually piece together, and I'm not really looking forward to doing it again, but I could be convinced. I could be convinced. But do let me know if you think that this is still an accurate representation of how freight trains are pieced together in terms of what they usually carry. Then let me know. I've tried to follow Google Earth as much as possible by seeing where particular freight is in freight yards, in train yards, and also what is actually on trains in general, and trying to figure it out. I feel like this is somewhat accurate, but who knows? I really don't know much about trains, so purely going off a aesthetic sort of a look. But who knows? Hopefully it's all accurate. I can just leave it how it is. If it is inaccurate, maybe I'll change it, maybe I won't. We'll see what sort of a mood I am and how much I actually get done. But I do really love the way that it turns out, and I think it really completes this whole area, which is something that I really wanted to get done. Like, I wanted to... this is like the last gap that I really needed to complete, and now the two areas are so well connected. It's just a matter of starting to branch out and expand in both cities, which is something that I've been really looking forward to doing, and I've just been holding off sort of branching out into bigger suburbs and other areas, into downtowns, because we're really just not there yet. But, you know, after this episode, well, after the next episode, then we're sort of ready to start going into some other particular areas, which is, you know, exciting. It's cool. That's like what I'm looking forward to doing. But I've pretty much just gone through and dragged down a whole bunch of trains that are going to sit in this area. And in the cinematics, you will start seeing some freight trains going in and out of this particular area. And it just looks fantastic. Like, I really love them. If you're sort of wondering where I'm getting these trains from, like, these trains are by Bisquicklehausen, who creates such incredible train assets. Pretty much everything that I use is made by him, so go and check him out. I actually think he collaborated with Tim the Terrible for this train series, so I'll actually leave a link in the description just in case I'm wrong. And go and check it out. I think they look fantastic. They're part of like a really big pack of trains, and the trains that I'm actually using that are driving around the city are just enormous. They're giant, and you know, luckily there's not too many intersections. There's not too many crossings around the city, because they just hold up the city so much. They're so long. But they really add to you know, what I'm trying to achieve in this city. And you know, freight and trains is sort of the basis of this series as well, amongst a lot of other things, I guess. And what I'm doing to this road now is I'm just adding in some shops that are going to sit on the fringe of the city. Now, these shops are something that I really wanted to add into this road, because I felt like this road otherwise would be quite bare and would only really have the purpose of transporting people across the city, rather than transporting people to things that are you know, within this area. And I felt like there needed to be some sort of shop or some sort of commercial district. And you know, I didn't really want to make it too crash hot. So you know, it's a mix of industrial, it's a mix of very low commercial that you know, is either probably abandoned or doesn't see much foot traffic. There's like a really dingy old motel that sits around here, and I'm actually going to be placing down a lot of these motels. There's a whole bunch on the workshop, which is great, because I think, you know, I want like a huge variety of different motels. Because essentially, like, you know, Las Palmas is going to be a place that is going to be, it's going to see a lot of transit of people. A lot of people are going to be going either to the US or to Mexico, and these motels are really just a very temporary stay. And I really want a lot of these sort of places, because I sort of want to give the impression that people are sort of coming to Las Palmas and then they're quickly going somewhere else, or you know, or a lot of these places are in fact like run down and old, and sort of being made way for some bigger and better motels and hotels. So there's going to be like whole districts of like not purely motels, but you know, there's going to be stretches of road that are going to like definitely have that feel to them. But guys, we are getting towards the end of the episode, and I do want to start finishing off by saying a massive thanks to everybody who submitted the billboards for the billboard challenge. I really appreciate it. The entries were incredible. I've now got the job to go through them all and find the ones that are best fit for this series, the most unique ones, the ones that really capture the essence of this area. And I'm going to send the selected ones to Ganook and to that Evan, and they're going to create them into props that I'll be placing around, and they'll also be up on the workshop as well, so you can check them out. But yeah, thanks so much for everybody who got involved in that one, and also massive thanks to everybody who's just been really lovely and leaving such amazing comments. I've been getting such great comments lately, and I really appreciate it. It's very humbling. You know, love reading everybody's comments and knowing that people are, you know, getting very excited about this series and the direction, because I'm really excited by it and I love the direction, and I'm looking forward to bringing more contents to you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then go and do that so you can get updated for more videos. I'm also on Twitter and on Instagram if you want to get a couple more teasers and find out a little bit more about what I am doing on a daily basis. We've also got a Patreon page where you can go and support the channel, and you get a whole bunch of perks like the save game and early access to videos and work in progress shots way ahead of this schedule, and yeah, that's it. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next episode. See you later.